Yep, you saw it. In the last 24 hours, the headlines have been popping up. 5 million barrels of oil from the U.S. reserve going to other countries as Americans continue to pay near record highs at the pump. Some folks are wondering why the gas is going overseas.
These stories are all over the place. For the next 10 minutes, we're going to dig into fuel prices and plans to help fight the higher costs.
So let's start with why our gas is going overseas.
Today, I'm authorizing the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months, over 180 million barrels for the from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
The Congressional Research Service released this chart showing the delivery schedule of Strategic Petroleum Reserve oil releases. 70 million barrels are expected to be released from the middle of May through the end of July. Now, when that oil is released, it goes to the global market. It's not just exclusively for U.S. consumption. Anyone can buy it.
And we'll use the revenue from selling the oil now to restock the Strategic Petroleum Reserve when prices are lower. So, we'll be ready. We'll be ready for future emergencies.
Whether the oil is bought to be sold in the U.S. or overseas, economics professor Todd McFall says any increase in the global supply helps lower the cost.
Anytime that you can increase supply of anything, you've pushed down the scarcity and you've lowered price, but not much. Like we're talking about 10 or 15 cents a barrel by my calculations.
Well, the U.S. Energy Information Administration says the country produces more than 16 million barrels of petroleum per day. Texas produces almost 24% of that natural gas, making it the largest natural gas producing state. Now, despite higher prices at the pumps and a strain on petroleum supply, Texas continues to ship the oil and gas it produces overseas. So why just can't the U.S. keep what it makes right here? Anastasia Bolton finds out.
I think it's Greek.
Yeah, look by the flag, it looks like a Greek flag.
Steve Wilder and Patrick Nye have the La Quinta Channel in Corpus Christi as their backyard.
I mean, I grew up on the water here.
55 years at this spot.
They know who's coming and going.
It'll be gone tomorrow.
Kind of too large to miss. The man's backyard also happens to be near the port of Corpus Christi, a hub for oil and natural gas exporters.
So I have a fundamental problem with exporting oil. I really do.
Nye sees the ships come, load up, and leave. This brings up some questions for him.
We're exporting oil from our own country, and we're importing oil about the same amount from countries that we can't control. Why are we doing that? Why can't we use it?
Part of that oil that's coming out of Houston is actually going to ports on the East Coast.
Professor Edward Anderson at UT Austin follows the supply chains closely, studying how goods and materials are produced and travel.
We export 15 million barrels per day, and we import 15 million barrels per day.
How does that make any sense? Well, the answer is in the cost of getting oil to its destination.
It is more expensive for us, for example, to ship oil to Alaska than it is to bring oil in from overseas.
Or it's cheaper to import oil to California than to transport it from Houston, he says.
Very complicated, all the different routes. If we block exports of, say, oil, other countries might stop shipping things to us. And there's some things that are produced outside the United States that we don't make here.
What does this mean for us at the pump? The prices will drop, Professor Anderson says. When and by how much depends on many things.
Speaking of many things, there are so many factors that also go into how much that gas ends up costing you at the pump. As gas prices pumped higher and higher, there were a lot of issues driving up the cost. Gas Buddy says it started with lower than usual prices during the peak of COVID shutdowns. As vaccines were announced and people started feeling safe to go out and about again, prices started going up. Then came energy supply issues in Europe and China. But prices really spiked after Russia invaded Ukraine. And demand kept rising, but refineries had not caught up with production because they were still short-staffed from COVID issues. Wake Forest economist Tom McFall says it boils down to simple supply and demand.
So prices are just going to be a function of scarcity. And if anything happens that makes anything, gasoline, tickets to a Hornets game, pancakes, more scarce, then the price is going to go up.
But right now it's going down. At the peak of rising gas prices, North Carolinians were paying $4.67 a gallon on average. That was on June 13th. Well, today, AAA says across our state, drivers are paying $4.41 a gallon, about a quarter less per gallon. Guilford County drivers are paying $4.38 on average. Folks in Stokes County are paying the most in our area, $4.50. And at $4.31 a gallon, Davidson County drivers are paying the least.
In California, AAA says drivers are paying an average of $6.21 a gallon, but hope's on the way there. The state passed a $17 billion stimulus relief package aimed at easing financial pressure for basic necessities like rent and gas and groceries.
Yeah, I could actually really use that right now. Pay the bills, we take care of business, food and such.
It's definitely going to help, but we need long-term help, not just short-term help. I think it's just like a short-term solution.
If you're talking about the Bay Area, $1,000 is like $50. It really is meaningless. It only happens once. Teach somebody how to fish or give them a fish every day. Well, this is like giving a fish, not teaching them how to fish.
California's stimulus checks are expected to go out in October. Well, here in North Carolina, Democratic lawmakers are pushing for their own gas price stimulus checks. The Senate filed the bill in May. If approved, the Gas Tax Rebate Act of 2022 would provide a $200 rebate. The bill says any licensed driver that was over the age of 18 as of March 31st would be eligible. Right now, the bill is sitting with the Committee on Rules and Operations of the Senate.
By the way, North Carolina not interested in getting rid of their gas tax at the state level. WO News 2 at 6 is next.